6:31, we'll call to order this meeting of the Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union 52 at today. Any changes to the agenda? For those of you who didn't get a chance or didn't receive the updated agenda, our agenda individual was gracious enough to slip it in the last minute, the SU budget under items for discussion. And I asked to have that put first so that I expect it may go over 15 minutes. But are there any other changes to the agenda that people feel important? No? Okay. Approval of the minutes. I will take a motion to approve the minutes of January 22nd, 2024.
So moved, Davis.
Second.
Thank you, Nancy. Any discussion regarding the minutes? I found them straightforward and efficient as usual. As no discussion, I will, all in favor of passing the minutes of January 22nd, please say aye.
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 And I'll abstain. Sorry.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstention? Was that okay? And Davis abstained. Any more abstentions? Okay. The minutes has passed. Public participation.
Yeah, do you have this?
No, wait, I gotta read my
Oh,
order.
that's what I was wondering.
Okay. Public comment is not legally required, but we believe it is crucial for us to hear from our community members about their concerns or issues. Through these meetings, our board models for our students how to conduct public discourse, and that the board and members of our community can approach controversial issues in a civil and constructive manner and can demonstrate mutual respect. Having said that, please note that the board is here to listen. The public comment period is not designed for discussion. Please start by identifying yourself and what town you reside in. I believe we have an in-person for public participation. I thank you. This is very rare in the SU meeting, so I do appreciate it. You have the floor.
Okay, I am Carrie Jewell. I'm a resident of Wethersfield. And I do have several questions and some pertain to the budget. Should I wait for those because it's an agenda item, or do you want me to pose the questions first? There are other ones that don't pertain to the budget.
Well, at this point, I'm not sure I will take public participation during the budget.
Okay.
So you are welcome during your time to, I've thought this out, you're welcome during this time to ask questions.
Okay.
Don't necessarily expect answers.
Sure.
But we welcome your question.
Okay. So one of the things that I brought up a couple of months ago here, and again at the Wethersfield School Board, is the due date of the SU budget being the 30th of June. And just want to continue to ask why that wouldn't be considered when making the budget. So if that is a possibility, then I understand that this board could opt to adopt a budget in the fall contingent on the local budgets all passing, which is obviously the situation we're in now, and we'll get into that. But I don't know that all of the public understands that the SU budget is not due to the state until June 30th for the next fiscal year, starting the day after. That is my understanding of the law. I think Christine verified that that is accurate. Another piece that I have brought up before and just want to continue to discuss is that I do understand that there are 3 reps from each town on the SU makeup of the board. And that is done with a waiver because, again, I don't think the general public understands that by Vermont law, there would only be 3 from Manistee School District. And there was a request by Dr. Baker, previous superintendent, for a waiver to have 3 also from the town of West Windsor. And I just haven't quite got a concrete answer from this level of the board. Again, my understanding would be if this board chose to take it up and it was a majority vote, that waiver could be retracted and it would go back to a 9-member board. So I'm just wondering if someone can confirm that not that it will happen, but it is possible.
I prepared an answer for that.
Okay.
But do you have any other questions?
Oh, yeah,
wait till
I do. Okay. And Christine has been wonderful about getting answers to me by the next board meeting. So this, in fairness to her, it's just a re-questioning what happens in the event that there's a tie vote at an SU board meeting. Okay.
I haven't found that one out yet.
Okay. As far as some budget type questions, I'm just curious. I haven't been able to figure out exactly how or where mental health services are funded. If that's all provided under the SU assessment to students in our school. If special ed bills any insurances for those service minutes, such as speech language or HCRS, OT, PT. I also am curious about the facilities and maintenance part. The budget line item is any portion of Weathersfield's maintenance or facility staff part of the SU assessment, or that is all on Weathersfield. I also was curious when a district, this is more of a statement and then the question, when a district has a surplus at the end of the fiscal year, it can be used towards the next fiscal year budget, put into reserve. It could be given back to the taxpayers. And I wonder if that's true for the SU. What happens in the event of a surplus or a deficit at the SU
We've done
level?
those before. They give us, we receive, each town receives something like that.
Okay. And if services are not provided in the full amount, like if our needs were not met, is there credit given for those minutes, or I don't know how the units are from special ed, but
So you're talking about special ed services?
yeah. This is my list of questions.
Okay. Thank you. Let me attempt to share here. Okay. So, thank you for your questions. In regards to the board members, let's see if I can
Bigger?
make this a little larger than that. It was not David who applied for the waiver. By law, he couldn't. It was the SU who applied for the waiver. So here is the law that you're referring to, that each a district has a minimum of no more than 3 members, okay, from each district. In the same law, here is the law that allows supervisory unions to apply for a waiver for any of the requirements for Chapter 5 or 7. So the waiver is actually written into law. And so when the Ascutney School District was created for that to happen, and for the two other districts, Heartland and Weathersfield, were nervous about losing school choice. It came up within the application that each of the four towns would have 3 votes. So to assist in getting that application approved by the state, that's one reason we decided to, as a SU, apply for the same power structure that existed before. And so at no time has, that I know of, you'd have to go back to the point when West Windsor was a SU on its own. That must have been 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
When there wasn't 12 members on board. So before the merger, there was 12 members. After the merger, there was 12 members. I think your point is that, and I'm making an assumption here, that you feel it's inequitable that Mount Escutney Board has 6 members on the issue.
I don't know that that matters. I'm just looking to have an answer to the fact that it is possible or not to retract the waiver, which would reconfigure.
It's not so much we would retract the waiver as much as we would apply to have it, we could, as an SU board, apply for another waiver, basically, to change the board makeup from 12 members to 9 members, 1 from each issue. So that is possible.
So, okay.
But it requires, as the law lays out, it would require the approval of the SU board.
Right.
And then the approval of the legislature.
Right. Yeah, okay. So the answer is yes on that.
I think it would also require public input.
It would, you would have to,
You have to
warn it,
hold
you'd have to
public
score it,
meetings,
and
yeah.
Yeah. It
It's
would-
not just like us being able to say, we're gonna change it.
Yeah.
It would, there's a
Right, there's a process.
lengthy process.
Yeah.
My question is answered, that yes, it's possible.
But it is possible. Yeah. Unlikely for a town, but possible. My hope of the future of the SU is to, never mind, I won't get into that. I'm assuming someone took down all those questions?
I did.
Thank you. Some of them have pretty straightforward answers, but I will do the best I can to get you an answer.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any public participation? Other public participation? Okay.
It's public participation and announcements, right?
Absolutely.
This week is Public Schools Celebration Week. It starts tomorrow at the State House with a resolution declaring this week a celebration of public schools. Wear red for Ed.
Okay. Thank you. Are there other public participation announcements? As we all here are part of the public, we're going to.
Oh, Heartland's drama production of SpongeBob with, I think there are West Windsor kids in it as well.
And Windsor, I think.
And Windsor, yeah,
Yeah.
there's kids from others, the SU kids are in Heartland's production. It's just Hell's at Heartland. Is the 22nd and 23rd of March. So look out for tickets. I am insanely excited. And for people that don't know SpongeBob, it's actually, I was not excited when we first heard it was SpongeBob. The story and the story is phenomenal. It's just really uplifting. It's about taking care of each other and bringing everyone together. And that is what we need right now. So everybody come see SpongeBob.
As a side note, I used to use SpongeBob episodes as a writing prompt.
There we go.
The storylines are really good.
Yeah.
And really solid. And besides the fact that, the creator of SpongeBob was from Woodstock.
And the music is phenomenal.
Very exciting. Thank you. Any other announcements?
Anne Marie, you know when the Weathersfield play is?
Yeah, the Weathersfield play, I believe it's not until April. So I was gonna actually, it's the April 26th and 27th, I
Okay.
believe.
What are you doing?
We're doing, something doing Beauty and the Beast, Beauty and the Beast Junior.
Anything else? Okay. Admin report. Start it off.
Yep, Tracy's up first. Are you?
Of the time.
She's good.
You are good.
Can everyone hear me? Yeah, they can hear me through there. Okay, let me go ahead and pull up some slides. All right, it's nice to see everyone. I feel like there are a lot of folks here tonight. Okay. That doesn't work. That's interesting. I didn't pull up my
Moved yours.
slideshow. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Hang on one second. I promise I've done this before. All right. So thank you in advance to folks who filled out the survey. And this is basically, we're going to get to it in just a moment, but it was in the interest of the request to continue to build some common language. So we are going to explore a little bit around equity, educational equity, and equality, a little bit in just a bit. So before I get to that, just a couple spotlights of some things that have been happening. One, today was actually the second session that we had. The picture that you're seeing there is of restorative practice training that's happening with middle school students in Windsor. Today we had our second meeting with them, and so Greater Falls Community Justice Center is helping to lead that, which is great. It's getting kids to a point of being able to think about how to hold circles to do some repair when hateful things are said. And so that's the hope, is that in the next few months, these students will be able to actually hold that space. And then we're trying to think about, well, but then what happens next year, right? When some of these students become high school students. And so there's, I think, a little bit more for us to consider around the bigger picture. Yeah.
Is it going to all of the schools?
Right now, this is at Windsor. It's available to all the schools. I'll say that. And so it was like, they expressed an interest, there was a need, and so this is where we started doing some, but it is something that's available.
I wonder whether the middle school students at Albert Bridge have access to it.
I was over there today, checking in with them. So I think it's figuring out what are all the opportunities and where's the interest, and so the other thing on here too that you're seeing is this was a school diversity. I think I mentioned that students in Heartland wanted to do an audit of their building, a physical audit of their building. And so these were some of the surveys that they did. They started with teachers, and then they polled students too, to see, like, did they feel represented in the images and the hallways and all that kind of stuff. And so I think the students are going to make a proposal for things that they'd like to see change in the building as part of this. And it's another example of like, hey, here's something that's happening. How can we share this so that if students at Weathersfield or students at Albert Bridge are interested in doing something similar, then they have some resources. All right. Another couple highlights. This is just some bulletin boards that were going up in schools celebrating Black History Month. So that was pretty cool to see. There's some students helping. Another place where maybe over time, maybe next year, we can be a little more intentional for how these themes are part of learning, not because we only want students to be learning about Black history in the month of February, right? But as a way of thinking about just organizing and uplifting a lot of communities who may not be fully represented, you know? So just a way of thinking about, just organizing around some themes throughout the year. And then this, I added in Katie. I don't know if you want to share, but this is another something that just happened since our last board meeting.
And since a person at our meeting said, does the board know? And Tracy and I were like, well, we think we mentioned in passing. So more than passing, we've met twice now, at an online briefing, and we did one in person today, hence the leftover cookies. So we are building the structure around a family social education council. So that will be in the ground up stages. We have lots of families interested. And so it was great. We have lots of email interest, as well as, I think collectively we reached 14 families from all around the SU, came either virtually or in person. So that there'll be more coming out about that as we develop it, and then hopefully it'll hit the ground running next year.
I read a little bit about it, and I think it's a great idea, and I'm just wondering if because you have special education, and I'm, if others may feel like I'm not invited. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that, and I think that you kind of want them there. You want but I know that clearly it is sort of supporting our special education families and things, and I was thinking about that. When I first read it, I said, oh, this is great. And then I thought about it, and I said, I wonder if someone else would want to participate and say, no, I'm not part of that special education.
So it's open to any community member. That's part of what we shared. CPACs, special education, parent advisory councils, the short term are actually mandated in some states. Vermont is not one of them. We'll be the third in the state of Vermont. Specifically focusing on building capacity and advisory for special education. I use special services a lot in my presentation, and we'll be reaching out to make sure it encompasses everyone, whether they have children within the system identified or not. So the focus is going to be special education and special services, but membership can be open to all, and the meetings will be open to all as well.
I think what will happen is you get folks that may not have a child in special education, and once they hear these conversations, they'll maybe say, hey, all kids, how can we make it where all kids can access these type of services? You know what I'm saying?
That's part of MTSS, and so why we had that discussion today too, so it's well aligned.
That was one of the exciting parts, right? Is one of the things that could come out of it are like community nights and events and guest speakers that would be with them.
And more parent connection opportunities.
Cool. All right. Oh, this is a reminder. I was gonna take time, but I know we don't have that much time together during these meetings to see if you all could name like what are some of the things that we've talked about in the 20 minutes that we've had during these board meetings. But so you don't have to do that. I just put this together, which shows the top half are all of the sessions that we've worked on together as the board. And then the bottom half is sessions that we've been supporting with school administrators. So we've been meeting with them once a month for an hour. And just so you can see, I know there was a request, like, oh yeah, wherever these can align so that y'all are kind of working similarly. It doesn't completely line up, but they're very complementary. So I just wanted to offer that. And it's also a place where if you can access all the slides too for all those sessions.
I want to celebrate that.
Progress. And I love that because you had mentioned during the first meeting about celebration.
This is celebrating.
Which is so important. So thank you for naming that again. Thank you for naming that again.
This is progress.
Incredible progress.
Yeah, and this is also too, if there are topics that you all want to cover that we haven't covered during the board meetings, please let me know because we can definitely puzzle those in. And I feel like it's been working out nicely. I think might have been your request too, is like that we didn't have to have it all like cemented what we were going to do and then sort of see over time what the needs were. And I think we're still getting to, because the thing I heard you all say was the desire for common language. And you're asking about educational equity and how we're defining that. And so it's kind of, well, that's where we're at tonight. We're going to talk about that.
But as part of this celebration piece, I really do appreciate the sharing of what you were doing in Windsor. I think that's really important for us to sort of to discuss the needs of equity, but also to hear what's happening either curriculum-wise or meeting-wise, so that we know, and even if it's personal, to celebrate. Right?
Yes. And I will say too, there are a lot of other things that are happening in our SU that I may not even know about or that I'm not part of, right? I know there were a number of groups last week that went to Claremont Opera House. There was an event happening there about Black History Month and jazz and music and stuff. And so there are definitely a lot of other things that are going on in the SU that I may not even know that are happening. All right. So equity and equality. We've got about 10 minutes to talk about both these themes, right? And again, thank you for those of you who filled out some information in advance. The thing I want to remind us all too is that this isn't as much about getting like the right definition as it is about having some agreement around what we think these words mean and how we're defining them, how we're using them as an SU is the most important part. So when we think about, I know a number of you answered the survey, equality, maybe just somebody can jump in and say, what do you think of when you think about equality? What is equality?
Everybody gets the same thing.
Everybody gets the same thing?
The same playing field.
Yep.
Everybody gets what they need.
That's equity.
That's equity.
So,
This is
We're
great.
gonna
We're having this conversation.
Sorry, Bill.
my issue with equality
Yeah.
is, in these sort of surveys, is I spend all day doing math. So my mind switches to mathematical definitions.
Yeah.
And unless I'm really on my game, which I'm really, I can't move away from that. I really have a hard time.
Yeah.
Unless it's.
Totally understand it. That's why we got the team here. Teamwork makes the dream work, right? And yes, I totally hear that. So for the purposes of how we're thinking about how you all are thinking about it, right? Some of the things that you shared in the survey, equality being the same, everybody's treated the same resources, right? Same opportunity, all the things are the same. Everyone gets the same, right? So same is definitely the word that seems to be repeating here. The thing is, right, equality is what we tend to think of as being fair in this country. You know, like I know growing up, I grew up with an older brother. If we ever shared anything, what do you feel like? Even if we like, my parents like cut it right in half and then they gave us like, what did we first say when we saw
Yours is bigger.
Like, yeah, it's like, that's not fair, right? I mean, and it's this idea that we have, I know I grew up with this idea that the sameness is what's fair. But what's fair is really equity, right? So again, equality is again about the same, valuing these inputs, everybody gets the same. Equity, on the other hand, like some of you named, equity is what's needed, people being treated in a way that's informed by their needs. Everyone gets what they need to reach their full potential, right? So equity is really about understanding what somebody needs in order to succeed or thrive. Equity is really interested in what those outcomes are. So if, like you took, right, my brother and me, if we were sharing some piece of food, the outcome was that we were both nourished. Maybe like we both weren't hungry then after we ate our thing. But he was 3 years older than me and a lot bigger than me, right? So he probably needed something more than I did in order to get to that same outcome. Same thing, I think about that, and it's so ingrained in me. Like I think about, my husband is 6'4", right? I mean, he's a lot bigger than me. And even when it comes to like dishing out plates of food, sometimes I'm like, I just revert to this place of thinking that it's the same. Even though I'm like, I don't eat as much as he does, right? But it's again, it's ingrained in this way of thinking that equal is fair. But it's challenging us to think that maybe equal isn't fair, and equity is really what's fair.
Interesting is,
Yeah.
giving as much time as I can.
7 minutes left.
No, you're 9 minutes and 41 seconds. To those of us who've taught constitutional law before, equity means equal. Everyone's treated equal.
Right.
Fair has to do with due process.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, thank you for saying that,
Yeah.
because I know that this is, again, this isn't, it's not saying these are the only definitions that exist or that they're like right, because depending on like how we're using them, where we're using them, it's just that we have an understanding of what it means within this context of talking about diversity, equity, inclusion. So thank you for bringing that up. I like this image because it shows, right, again, that the point of this is that, you know, if everybody was gonna go on a bike ride together, then people need different things, right? You can't have a one-size-fits-all solution that's actually gonna work for everyone. I had a friend who used to talk about like having a pizza party. She's like, if everybody comes to my pizza party, you know, but like somebody doesn't eat cheese, you know, or somebody's lactose-free, somebody's gluten-free, somebody like that, you know, it's like, but everybody gets pizza and the same pizza, right? You're gonna have some people who are sick, you're gonna have some people who don't eat, right? You're gonna have all these things, but it's, equity is thinking about what is it that somebody needs.
there's a special ed meme where you've got an elephant, a monkey, a giraffe, all these African, and the teacher in the front. Today's test is climbing this tree. And so you have a hyena and a monkey
Yeah,
and a giraffe and an elephant.
Yeah.
An equitable test?
probably not.
No.
Yeah, so again, it's thinking equality is the same, equity is that everybody gets what they need, especially when the context of thinking about historical patterns, right? I mean, we're not coming from the same, there isn't a level playing field. And so if we don't have a level playing field, and that's the reality, which I'll show you another image in a bit that I like that shows like, here's what reality is. Reality is that things are not, they're not equal, right? They're not fair. So we're not gonna get our way to equality unless we're considering equity and what people really need. Does that make sense? Any thoughts about that? Any comments or reflections, questions? So then we have some examples of educational equity, one that's even in our WSESU equity policy. So we do have this defined. We have equity defined. It's not specifically called educational equity, but this is about educational opportunities. So we actually have a definition in one of our policies for equity. Which I don't know that we'll spend too much time thinking about it, but it basically, you know, it's saying what I was just naming, right? Equity means that a student's success is not predicted or predetermined by characteristics such as race, ethnicity, religion, right? Places where somebody or their ancestors or their generations before them may have experienced inequities, unequal access to different opportunities. So equity is taking that into consideration. So again, we actually have, I mean, looking at this definition, I'm curious what do you think about this definition for equity?
I read it like a week ago, but I thought it was pretty good. It was a lot better than I think one of them was really terrible. It was,
Was it AOE's?
yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I appreciate the amount of ground it covers. I like that it gives multiple different examples of context, because I think it's when in defining something you settle on one context, you kind of lose some of the nuance around the edges.
Yeah.
I think it's looking at this is great, but it also comes to a point where you have to then recognize and even celebrate the fact that within a classroom, there's never an equal basis. So I don't want to use equitable, but the fact that the students all come from a different background. Parents are sending us the children they have, and that's because it's a public school. And so those educators have to deal with that fact. And as an institute, I believe schools could do a much better job leveling the playing field for those students.
I think that's somewhere too where universal design, UDL, right? Where those kinds of practices and principles come in to the classroom. Because it's like if you are trying to meet each student where they're at, it may require something different. somewhere slightly different.
And the simple fact that organizing students by age is really an outdated and backwards design of early, especially early and mid-level education.
All kinds of things to consider.
And one of the things I really focused on, even in your, in the piece where you sent us to read about educational equity, was the piece on disruption. That just like, after that, I didn't see anything else, because I realized how important that is. That we tend to say, we've always done it this way, and as if we were, yeah. And when we're asked to do it differently, it's like,
Yeah.
that you're a problem. I mean, you're creating problems. We've always done it this way, and it's worked okay. Has it really worked okay?
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And so I just really was caught, and I think this definition looks at that. We do need to disrupt, and how do we do that? And I don't think we do that easily because it's uncomfortable.
How to battle the sacred cow.
Yeah, and it's uncomfortable, and I think it's okay to be in the discomfort,
Yes.
because if we can, hold on to that tension, we will come out on the other side, but it is uncomfortable, but I definitely just grabbed onto it, like disrupting.
Yeah. There's so many things in what you're sharing, but it's how do people relate to change, right? How the status quo of systems continue to just keep on keeping on, right? And our systems were designed in a way that are inequitable. And it requires nothing on our part. If we do nothing, right, they're gonna keep on keeping on with inequitable outcomes, right? So it takes us being really intentional about what we're doing and how we're doing it. And that's, I think, one of, some of the implications from this is thinking about, I know we've talked about having an equity filter, right? Which is basically the questions that help us surface. Are these things happening? How are these things happening? Where are they? Who's being impacted most? How do we design for solution by centering people who are most impacted, right? Those are some of the things that we know work best. One of the examples, I know that one of the speakers at the Vermont Principal Association who was talking about universal design, she's like, take curb cuts, right? Curb cuts in sidewalks may be designed, right, in order to allow access for folks who might need it, but they also benefit so many other people, right? They benefit somebody walking with a kid in a stroller. There's so many other benefits that come out of that. So even though you're designing for folks who might be most impacted, it's also something that's actually gonna work to everybody else's benefit, which isn't the way we tend to think of things. We think of them as equal, and then it's scarcity, right? It's like, if it's not equal, it's not fair, and there's something with scarcity there. But anyway, so there's a lot of things for us to consider on this. I'll share just a couple other, this is just when you think about the relationship between diversity, equity, inclusion. Diversity is something that shows us what's possible, right? It's like, if we can see what's possible, either in people or experience, diversity can show us what's possible. Equity is always asking, where are the gaps? Equity is always looking to close the gaps. And inclusion is asking, like, who needs to be centered in that? And so if you think about them in this way, I think it can be helpful. Again, this is just a way of organizing how we are all kind of sharing our language and understanding about all this. And then
I have to go back to the conversation around our diet, and if we just like focus, which there's a tendency to do on certain kinds of diet, not that I'm saying any of them are right or wrong or wrong, but they don't seem to work. But when you hear, it's like we want a diverse, amount of foods in your diet. I mean, you don't want a lot of this or a lot, so you have some veggies, you have your fruit, you have your carbs, you have your protein, and that diversity really is what makes you healthy.
yeah, I mean, depending on the vessel, I suppose that it's going into also. But yeah, I'm with you on that. So this is a pretty common image that shows up in a lot of places anytime I like that this one shows a couple of things, right? So I like how it shows again the reality is that it's not unequal. Things are not evenly distributed, right? I mean, depending on your identity, depending on your socioeconomics, I mean, there's so many things, right, that aren't level. It's not a level playing field. So that's really what the reality looks like. And then I like how it's, the idea is we can get to this place of collective liberation, which is like, let's just tear down the fence. And we all have, access and are able to enjoy and engage in ways, because that's recognizing that even if when things are unfair, there's a way that it's impacting all of us. Even if it's not impacting me directly, right? There's something about this experience that's impacting us as a collective. And so how do we start to live into that a little bit more? All right. Any final thoughts? I think that takes us to time plus 2 or so.
44 seconds left.
So yeah, again, if you have any thoughts for things that you want to cover like next time or whenever, let me know.
I want to thank you because we always need the repeat. And hear it again and again and again.
I'd only seen this graphic go from equality to equity. I hadn't seen the reality and liberation. I'd like to see the liberation. It's like, duh, yeah, it'd be nice if there was no fence.
I also think that there should be another one where not everybody has to watch the game.
Yeah, totally. Love that. They actually, they made, the folks who made this, they have like a blank square. And so it's for folks to do stuff like that, like put in whatever thing you think it might be, because there have been a lot of critiques of this. There's a lot to read about this image, but I like that one as an option too.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Thanks. Brittany's up next.
Okay.
All right. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Awesome. Oh, am I too loud?
I'm just gonna back up.
Yeah, let me take out my hearing.
Really? Is it because of you guys or because of me?
It's the owl. It's the owl. I can turn it down.
Okay. Otherwise, I can whisper, maybe? I don't know. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and present my screen here.
We're gonna hear it.
Try not to yell at you. I don't know.
Don't get too excited.
I know, right? Okay. So this is our data report for winter. This is our second round of STAR data that I'm going to be presenting to you. So it's pretty nice to see, growth over time, starting to build that historical data. I do want to say that on February 6th, we had an early release day, and we used that to really dig into the data. Teachers looked at it, kind of worked as teams to look at their WIGs and the progress that they've made on their WIGs, which is wildly important goal for those who are not quite sure, which we have as a result of our leader and me. And so they looked at that data, they identified ways that they kind of have shown some improvement, ways that they might need to improve in the future, and then went in and set action plans. What are we going to do about it now? Which I think goes nicely into what Tracy was just talking about, which is how are we going to differentiate our instruction and what we're doing with our students so that all students are showing growth, and that we're hopefully going to see that in our data. So I will go ahead and get started. As always, this is organized by the goals in our strategic plan. So student success and engagement goes right into our STAR data. This says 1st through 8th grade. However, I do want to say there are only about half of our 1st graders, probably maybe even a little less, took this assessment. The others took the early literacy assessment. So there's this little bit of a divide about who's taking what, and how we differentiate that is usually the STAR reading test is more for readers, right? Students who are pretty much getting into their reading, whereas the early literacy is assessing basic level foundational skills for students who are going to beginning to read. So you can see based on our colors here that our 1st through 8th grade did make quite a bit of improvements. We want to see this blue and this green growing and our yellow and our red getting smaller.
What
That's our
program
reading.
did you- What program did you use to create this visualization?
This came from EduClimber.
Oh, okay. Is there any
Yeah.
way to increase the size of the numbers? Not right now, but in the future.
In the future, potentially, I can look into how to do that. This is, so how I do this is I create an achievement dashboard in EduClimber. It creates a link and I get to insert it, but I can play around with that a little bit.
Okay, thank
It
you.
looks a lot better on a different screen. Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
that's rough. This is not bad. Yeah.
Which screen does it look better on? The one when you pull it up individually?
Yeah,
Or
When I pull it up, I can barely read what's there and I'm really close to it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's the,
Oh, thank you.
it's the projector, it's not you.
Okay. So our reading scores are also similar in terms of the growth that we've made. We're seeing this blue and this green increase and the yellow and red decrease. Still a lot of work to do, obviously, but certainly moving in the right direction.
I've got a question.
Mhm.
I don't see the green increasing. Is it?
The green didn't, the blue and the green together did though, because when you're looking at this, what we're hoping for is blue and green are both at or above proficient. And you can see if you drew a straight line across here, our yellow and our red are getting slightly smaller.
I do see that, but I wonder what accounts for the loss of green.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out, being an expert on this, is the simple fact that STAR testing is date specific. Okay, so actually it is age specific. Okay, so that as students get older, the bar for them to reach the standards increases. So it's not the same bar from the first to the fall to the winter. It is a different bar.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dale.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. I still have, obviously this is new to all of us, and so we have a lot of work to do in terms of learning the system, but we're getting there. And overall, I think this is progress. And in a little bit, I'm going to show you our growth data. So as we get into it, we have 9th and 10th grade also takes it. I separated that out a little bit, just so you can see where they're at with their reading. So again, we're seeing some growth, which is great. Math, however, is an area that we have a lot of work to do on. And a leadership team today met that included myself, Christine, Angie Ledoux, the principals from Windsor, the MTSS coordinators, to really talk about what does this mean and how are we going to address the data? Because typically it's not, these students came in with some deficits in math. So what are we going to do prior to that in order to help prepare them better for high school? So we are developing an action team, and we're going to move forward with some work around trying to see where we can make some improvements in our high school math data.
Let me jump in again, if you don't mind,
Please.
Brittany. One of the things is that these are based upon the Common Core standards, and where they're at. And one of the issues with the Common Core is the fact that I find the math skills really unrealistic in many ways. Okay, because it almost moved the standards up a grade level from before the Common Core to the Vermont standards, when the Vermont standards had their own standards. And to deal with that, it's going to take a long time to adjust instructional methods to reach that. And I think it might even take a alternating approach, because so many students developmentally are just not ready for those concepts. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And we certainly are seeing a decrease just in our overall practice of students coming into high school not quite ready for some of the algebra classes that we're offering. So Kate Ryan has done some work around that in terms of running some numbers and really thinking about how are we going to support our students and get them ready for algebra moving forward, working closely with Colleen. So yeah, we have a plan for that, and we're hoping to start making some real growth in that area. Speaking of growth, this is our growth data. So high growth, we have, 39.5% of our students made high growth in the area of reading, and 33.9% of our students made high growth in the area of math. That does not mean that they're reaching proficient, right? So you could have a student that was significantly below proficient, but made significant growth, which is really what we want to see. So if we continue making growth in the way that we are, I think we'll see the benefits in terms of our proficiencies and our scores improving in that area. So I look forward to running this data again in the spring, especially after the teachers kind of set their goals and made some real instructional planning towards what they're going to do in order to reach those goals. Are there any questions about that?
For anyone who wants to dive into, there's a whole booklet on STAR testing and how it is analyzed. It's all based upon scale score.
Yes.
And each question has a different scale. And so the growth calculations are separate from the standards calculations. The standards based upon age are very rigid. You have to, if you hit 650 in math, then you reach the standard. But if you're at 649, you don't reach the standard. So that's a very specific, well, the growth I find to be a much better indicator of success of the teacher.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And we are looking at growth with our teachers quite a bit. Now that we have our second round of data where we were able to do that, and there's quite a few growth charts within Renaissance itself that teachers found very valuable. And they also found that they were able to say, okay, the achievement and the growth level of the students in their class, they were almost able to predict that without even looking at the STAR data, which was really powerful because it says that the STAR data is accurate from what they're seeing in the classroom. So that was really a nice opportunity for teachers to be able to reflect on that. All right, our next is the attendance data. I ran this a little bit differently because I wanted to be able to show you over time versus just a snapshot of where we're at in the middle of the year. So this is our K-8 attendance. Certainly went down. This is not shocking, this December number. I mean, people are going on vacations and all of that stuff. Lots of different things happening during that time. And then the same with 9/12.
There was a stomach flu outbreak as well.
Yes, yeah. There was all sorts of things happening. I will tell you that. Yes, it's a lot. So this is not shocking numbers at all, but our overall data has pretty much remained consistent from this year to last year. So it is looking fairly consistent. Some schools have done a little bit of improvement, but for the most part, we've remained pretty consistent. Culture and wellness, this is our behavior data. You'll remember when I presented in the beginning of the year, or maybe you don't, but we talked about this being significantly higher, this orange data right here. This is this year's. A lot of that, I think, was likely due to some behavior parameters we put in place. We developed a behavior matrix and database so that everybody could see exactly how we're going to be responding to information or to the behaviors of students. And so I was not surprised. This is also figuring in our cell phone policy, which went into play at the beginning of the year. So again, it takes some time to get used to that policy, and students certainly push that a little bit more at the beginning of the year. Most of the time too, to be honest, teachers report a lot more at the beginning of the year, and that kind of fades off as well. So you might see a little bit of both, but the good news is it's tracking significantly lower and about where we should be moving into February here. And I did run this early in February, so this was I don't know, a couple weeks ago. And then here's our major behaviors, same idea, tracking in a very same way, but very much on par now with where we were at last year. Are there any questions about the behavior data? I think that might be my last slide, actually.
I have a question about attendance data. Is there any way to, at sometime in the future, to look at percentage of students who are federally, I run this data all the time, dyslexia is a home disease. Come on, give me a hand here.
You reduce lunch?
No,
Federally,
attendance. The attendance data that you have to apply for federal. I'll email you. I'll look at 15 spreadsheets on it and Gary
Yeah, no,
Russell.
that would be great. Email me. Like I said, all of this I run in EduClimber. It's pretty powerful. It can do a lot of stuff. And if not, we can certainly pull probably the information you want from PowerSchool.
Yeah, it's that students who miss 10% or more.
Truant. The truant?
Oh, you
No.
truancy data?
It's more than 10% absent is chronically absent. Thank you.
we got this. 17 and a half days.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we have that.
Okay. Yes. I know you have, but it'd be
We
interesting
don't
to look
show
at.
it, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I can definitely run that data and either I'll send it to Christine and to you, and you guys can, we could either put it in the next board report or send it out.
Yeah.
But yes, we can do that.
Okay.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
All right, my
Okay,
turn.
that's all I had. If you think of anything, let me know or Christine, and we'll go from there. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Brittany.
I think your screen's turn the brightness down so it's better.
Oh, well, I know how.
He said why.
Yeah.
No, I just accept it. I can't see it. I turn it up when I need to.
All right, my turn. So I will get started with procedures. We had 2 procedures for you to review this month. One is Title I comparability, which is pretty standard. Pretty much comes from the policy. And then the procedures on animal dissection, which is pretty cut and dry as well. Any questions on those?
I've got a question.
Yep.
How are you coming up with the procedures?
Looking at the policy, looking at what other districts have come up with. I have Larry's written some for us. Angie writes the curriculum ones. Katie's written a couple. So.
Do you take inputs from people who have to look with the policies?
Of course, yeah. That's why they're here, so you can comment on them before they go into practice. They're not public yet until they're presented to the board and you have opportunities to adjust, make comments. So if you have some, just send.
And really, at any time, if anybody or on the board has a question or concern about a certain procedure, we're very open to it.
Yep.
Well, the more, you and I talked about procedure implementation procedures for certain policies. The more I think about it, the more I think that it would be really important to gather input from students and teachers on some of those. What is necessary for smooth implementation and why, according to the people who are affected by it, or for the people who it protects.
That's one thing we're dealing with or addressing during negotiations. One of the negotiating topics that we came up with was safety. And many of the teacher proposals really were policy and procedure language. So coming up with something in which some method for teachers to participate and be reimbursed for reviewing policies and procedures and having them be part of the discussion, I think, would be extremely important.
I would go so far as to say that we should take a step back and look at our whole system of adopting policies and procedures. Not go through, make a spreadsheet out of all of
Please,
them.
not again.
No, I'm not doing that again. I'm gonna whole step back, say, how we go about it. When we passed the transgender policy, I really love the way that the degree to which that was readable, understandable by anybody. And I strongly feel that we should be using that kind of simple, elegant language for policies so that when parents want to look up a policy, they can look it up and not have it be encumbered by stiff language and have to really think through what the language is saying versus what the policy is saying. And likewise for the procedures, I think that we might consider having a procedure of procedures. Like if the board deems a policy to need
Style guide.
a style guide, but yeah, I should have a style guide.
The procedure of procedures.
Yeah, a style guide, but also, because it's a big procedure or policy that's going to change the way that teachers teach. Teachers should have input and students should have input.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah,
I think
what's really interesting, you bring up the transgender policy. That was one of the few times in which we really pushed out there
Mhm.
To multiple groups, so to speak, to get their feedback. And so in those types of policies and procedures where it really involves teachers and students, I think that's really the place we should focus on. Unfortunately, a lot of the policies that we get revolve around compliance to state and federal laws.
Yeah,
But those don't require us to really dive down into, but I agree with you with the fact that there's those certain policies, especially one of the greatest things for teachers concerned during negotiation is of course student behavior. And the functionality of the processes that we have in place, with a lack of functionality from their perspective. And so creating a system in which we push out even more than we pushed out the transgender policy, I think would be a great step for equity and inclusion.
And as a legislator, I had a group of students we started off in June coming up with a policy about how students could, with guidance, look at the policies and critique them and then go to their boards and ask for changes. And then over time, between June and now, we talked about who the people guiding it would be and who would guide them and how, whether they should be invited or appointed and whatnot. Don't worry, this bill isn't actually going anywhere, so don't. But just to tell you my train of thought on all of this, it occurred to me over talking through with them in various iterations of this, that having them be a big, not just being included in the discussion, but really driving the discussion on some of these policies, I think, really leading the discussion on the procedures.
It's very difficult to create a vision without participation.
I think we really benefited tremendously from having a student on the school board, and I mean, I miss it already, and you can feel the vacuum already. And I think that we really should look at that, and that is getting that, a student, but maybe not looking at just getting one student. I know that we have tried, but I think that it probably makes sense to look at trying to have at least 2 students on the school board, because You know, we have a vacuum now because we only have one. But, I mean, I can just feel their voice, it's not heard. You know, you're
Yeah.
hearing voices from administrators, their voices are just not, it's not here.
And also, you know, they should have an opt-out. So when they get to their junior or senior year and they get overwhelmed by applications or sports or what have you, they can opt out. They're students.
Make it so that so that they can
If they
remain,
want to.
participate, and I agree. I think that that's really worth looking at and saying, how do we bring in the next students?
So thank you, Elizabeth.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take.
That's okay.
That's all right.
No, you're always keeping us student focused, which I appreciate. So we'll work on that. I'm going to just go over quickly the results from the February question of the month, which, as you recall, was about early release days. I don't know if you can see it. I just updated. I had a few more responses over the weekend, so we got 63. The blue is, the question was early release days, ... have no impact on our family or a challenge for our family. So out of that, those responses, 36.5% have an impact and 63.5% do not.
Can you say this one more time, please?
The numbers?
Yeah, the
Sure.
percentage.
Yep, 36.5, a challenge for our family, and 63.5 have no impact on our family. The next question was, we're exploring replacing early release days with full days for professional development or conferences. This idea could push the last student day to later in June. What is your preference? And again, 63 responses, 73% wanted early release days, 9.5 said it doesn't matter, and 17.5 were in favor of the whole day versus the whole day, which would increase the student and staff school year.
In any of that data gathered, was there a place to put in what ages?
In the survey itself, I believe that I did put that. Let me just,
I think you did.
I think I did.
I remember something. It'd be interesting to look at. I know it's only 63 responses, but to see if there is a split between
Yeah, high school and,
high school and
yeah, I don't think I did actually. No, no, no,
elementary school. Because
yeah, it's gonna make a difference.
50 of the respondents were parents of
High
high school
school.
students.
Yeah.
Well, that makes complete sense.
Right,
Yeah, they don't have to find childcare.
they don't have to find childcare, yeah,
And most of them aren't farmers, so
right,
early release days for me when I was a kid, that just meant
Work.
I had to shovel them in.
yeah, you had to work. Okay, moving along, what is your preference for the best days of the week for early release days to occur? Most people, 90.5% said Fridays. We asked, do you prefer that early release days happen before a long weekend or a break? And 50.8% said yes, they do prefer that. There was a good percentage that don't have a preference at 31.7, and 17.5 said no. What is your preference for the best days of the week for full day in services to occur? And again, Friday or Monday, which we try to do. And then, do you prefer full day in service days happen before a long weekend or a break? Did I put that in their choice? No, I think it's different. They said yes, 42.9% said yes, 42.9% have no preference, and 14.3 said no. The challenges, we asked about what the challenges were for people. And I think one person said that is such a stupid question. Obviously, it's childcare. Like, yeah, you're right. Like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. So, childcare being the biggest challenge, transportation home for some people was a challenge as well. Loss of work time for parents was another challenge. Those were the three biggies that came up. And I don't think that those are surprises for us.
No.
We asked about other ideas for students to participate in on early release days, and there's some interesting ideas. Some sort of organization for parents to sign up to help other parents with childcare after school or school pickup was a great idea. Utilizing winter sports or outdoor activities, community visits. after-school in-building programs, local rec departments, local libraries, high school helpers. I mean, there were some great ideas that came out of the survey. I think they're all wonderful. It's just putting them into practices where the challenge occurs. Yes, Dave. Yeah, sorry.
Teachers, classroom teachers participate in winter sports?
Winter activities?
Yes.
Yes, they do.
Because I remember at Concord, that was staff development time.
Oh, okay.
We
Yeah, I don't
we
think,
didn't get to go to suicide, what was then suicide sex?
who took the kids? Parents?
There was a paid program,
Oh, okay.
parents,
Yeah.
volunteers.
Okay. Yeah, for us, it's staff. Staff are all assigned.
Yeah.
Or they get to choose kind of which activity they are most comfortable with, but yeah.
Looking at that first item, yeah, the organizational
Yeah.
system for parents, what's the current state of, like PTO type things in our districts in the SU? Because to me, it's like that would be
Well,
natural.
Harry, Weathersfield has very strong PTO. Heartland has a pretty strong PTO. And Windsor's, I think, is rebuilding from COVID still. There were some.
Okay.
West Windsor, the Albert Bridge is a pickup in their participation.
Increase, yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that to me seems like a really natural place. That kind of organizing,
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. people helping each other.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Also, for the high school,
Yeah,
community service, which a lot of kids struggle with, finding
Yeah.
community service, that last one would be perfect.
mm-hmm,
You could organize something,
yeah,
or if something could be organized.
right. No, I get it.
But there already is a community service person, correct? Community service is available for high school students.
Oh, yeah, they have
Yeah,
opportunities,
It's already
yes.
in place.
Yes, but a lot of people don't know what to do to earn those hours. And this is a way to fulfill your obligation of 40 hours of community service.
Yeah, it would take some pre-planning. And it probably would require a staff member to
Yeah.
assist in that.
For sure. Probably more than one,
Right.
Yeah.
so. Here's some other just comments on what to do. Heartland specific, they do close the rec, which is their after-school care on early release day, so
Why?
I don't know.
Because I think it's staffed by teachers. I
Oh,
think
yeah,
it's
that's part
staffed,
of it,
it's staffed by
Part of
people
the
that
staff.
work in the.
Yeah. and they're in professional development, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I thought it was a community. Oh, the rec, no. never-
Heartland Rec does after-school care, yeah. More comments on the rec programs being utilized more readily, more local daycares taking on school-age children, and partnering with outside resources to provide enrichment activities, which are all wonderful ideas. So,
As a parent, I have to say, bridging the gap has been fantastic.
yeah,
And, getting into that program isn't always that easy, but still,
and that program's grown into,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
so, which is
getting
great,
the word about that would be good.
Yeah.
It just, and even on, more often than not, for, staff development full days, they take the kids all day for
yeah,
$18.
yeah, that's a great
So,
service for families. Okay, so my next question that I'm proposing that I ask next month for the board is, what makes you most proud of your child's school? So if you would like a different question, I'm happy to go in that direction, but
Would you say that question again?
what makes you most proud of your child's school? So what are we doing well? And then maybe in April, we can ask what makes you least proud. Start with the positive.
at some point though, I'd like to, because we're looking at this from the budget way, to be able
Yeah.
to circle back to the
Mhm.
question about early release, because,
You want to follow up on that one?
no, not next
Okay,
week. No, I like this question.
okay,
I think even possibly plan it for a month where we know we have early releases.
Yeah, yeah.
Be able to throw that
Okay,
out
yeah.
right after an early release.
Yep.
To get, and then input that,
Yeah.
that age
into it, yep,
as well.
okay,
And I don't know, maybe have some sort of lottery to get more people to
to
participate.
participate, yeah, yeah.
Win a free pizza.
Yeah.
Say Amazon gift card.
Yeah, Amazon gift
Amazon gift
card,
card.
yes, there we go.
Okay, this is in response to, I think, Bill, you wanted to know the anticipated openings, retirements for next year? Oh,
Sorry.
that's okay, I'm almost done.
No, I forgot to pause.
Oh, okay.
When
So
those of us interrupted you. Yes.
I had talked with each of the principals, and I just want you to know that these openings are with the budgets that were proposed. So I'm assuming some of these are going to be deleted once we revisit our budgets. So that was Heartland, Mount Scottney School District. So that includes both Windsor and West Windsor and Weathersfield. And then Katie filled in for the SU office, what she's going to be looking to hire for next year, or what she's been currently trying to hire
So
for this
these are
year.
all unfilled positions.
Or contracted services positions.
Yeah, yeah.
We have to advertise that.
I mean, it's actually not as bad as, there are schools that are in much worse condition in terms of filling.
How many, what is like the percentage of openings for you? How many staff do you have?
I can't do the math right off the top of my head. So I did the other one.
You can give me a guide.
We have, we're almost back up to fully staffed with support staff.
Okay.
We've actually had an influx of support staff applications in the past 8 weeks for interviewing and onboarding folks. So that we're still short 3.5 special educators, special ed positions, which people have been cobbling together really well. So percentage-wise, fairly low. And then what you see up there, the clinicians, the SLPs, those are all contracted services, so we have to
Do that every year anyway.
Yeah, we have to do that anyway.
Okay, so it's not
Can
as
you
bad as.
lay out the acronyms there? ACE, HS?
ECSE is Early Childhood Special Ed,
Okay.
and then ACE is the Academic Community Excellence Classrooms that we have at
Yeah,
our
that I
program,
knew.
middle high school. That's it, yeah. No,
HS?
HS high school.
Okay, I kind
Sorry.
of figured that. Yeah, okay.
That one I knew.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so those are as of now, but I think that list will change. And then we've been talking about hiring practices, so I wanted to report back that we created a committee. It's Tina Canfield, our HR director, Larry, Tracy, Brittany, and myself. We've met 3 times so far. I've listed our goals. We are really interested in creating consistent and inclusive practices across hiring groups. So we're working on, we started at the support staff level because that's the area that we needed to really shore up what we were doing in terms of a practice for hiring. So creating, the committee is working on creating job postings, job descriptions, determining where to post positions, and how to really expand where we post positions. And Tracy's been pretty helpful with thinking differently about that. Creating expectations for interviews and the committees for those interviews, creating common interview questions and common reference check questions as well. So it's a work in progress at this point. I don't think, well, as a follow-up, are there any questions on the hiring practices?
I was just kind of curious, like, is this just hiring practices at the SU level, or are you gonna be sort of passing these down to the individual?
Yeah, the committee's working on them, and then we'll bring them to the administrative team to dissect. And you know, some of it's capacity, to be honest with you. It's time consuming to go through the process, but we want to, as Larry will say, we want to make it hard for people to get hired here because we want people here that want to be here and they're going to stay here. So there is rationale behind it. It keeps us on track. There was a question about how we recruit high school students for jobs within our school. And so I talked to Kate. She reports that she attends senior meetings, throughout the year to talk with students about their plans after high school, shares opportunities at Windsor. Students during their high school time get to participate in experiences that allow them time in classrooms to see what it's like to be a support staff member. Windsor accepts and encourages college internships with former students. There is also, she said, additional targeted recruitment of students who are interested. So there's more specific discussions with those students. The jobs are posted in the senior lounge, and she just did want to highlight that she did a survey, and 35% of the Windsor staff are graduates of Windsor, which is wonderful, actually.
Yes.
So that's a high percentage. And that concludes my report. How did I do on time?
I stopped.
Oh,
You were doing so fantastic.
stop. Okay, good. I'll take that. All right, thank you. All right, I will stop sharing my screen and turn it back over to you, Bill.
Okay, item for discussion. The first one off the bat, and we're not requiring a motion, but the SU budget. I'm really interested on hearing from where we're at with Ascutney, Weathersfield, and Heartland, where they are at for rescinding their budgets. What sort of timetable they have.
In Weathersfield at noon today, we had a meeting and voted to rescind the budget, and actually all of our school voting and our information meeting was going to a later date.
I like to quote Anne Marie, we're living dangerously. We're going ahead with our informational meeting and having a discussion on whether or not to rescind the budget during the informational meeting.
So when is it?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
That's
Okay.
the reason I've been doing this.
Davis.
And yeah, I know you were already aware, but Madagascar School District rescinded our budget at our last meeting. And we are actually meeting a special meeting tomorrow to look at how the adjustments that we're going to make and ostensibly approve the budget tomorrow. That's the
So, to the SU budget, Christine and I have chatted a little bit. I'm anticipating that if we take Heartland sort of out of the equation because they are.
Because we don't know what we're doing?
Yeah. But I do anticipate that all three districts will probably come back with an altered budget. I think that's a pretty fair sort of assessment based upon the risk and the uncertainty. And Christine and I have begun to talk about, just briefly, really briefly, possibilities of where we could look at cutting the SU budget. I don't feel that I feel strongly that when we're talking about equity, is that right? That's the equity, equal, right?
Equality.
Equality, thank you. Equality and if the three school districts are going to go back and cut from their budget, it really is important for us as an SU board to look at that as well. With that said, until all three have cut or decided to cut, I'm kind of uncertain about setting a special meeting. So based on what I would like to do is with the SU
So you want me to tell you tomorrow whether or not to set it?
is to, once we know all three have opened, to set at a reasonable time, to give time for Christine and Larry, and if they want my input as well, they're more than welcome to contact me, to come up with some options for a alternate proposal. And in that special meeting, as an SU board, to vote to either rescind it or not, and then look at the numbers that the administration has for us to consider. Yes.
I just, I'm really concerned about the time frame here, because from what Christine tells me, we need to have our individual votes by, I'm not talking about board votes, I'm talking having the town weigh in and vote. We have to have that done by April 9th in order to avoid riffing staff.
So the collective bargaining agreement says we have to have contracts out April 15th. So if we don't have budgets, we can't give
So you gave us
contracts.
a date of,
Yeah,
you'd
the
like to
9th.
have our votes by the
Yep,
9th.
Tina said that she could get the contracts done, and, if she had the information by the 9th.
Yeah. That week is the week of April vacation.
Mhm.
So really the last day before April vacation that we could all have our townwide votes would be April 5th. We have to warn it
30 days prior.
30 days prior.
By March.
So we have to have our budgets warned by March 5th.
That's a week from tomorrow.
Yeah,
I think that is the date. Let me just double check.
and we need the SU budget in order to put it into our budget. So we need to get all this done by March 5th. That's what I'm saying.
Not only that, we need to make the cuts, or if we make cuts to the SU budget, we need to do that. And then the boards have to get together again to approve their budgets again.
Yeah, so
that's like 2 more meetings between now and March 5th.
Yeah, so it would be ideal for me if we can work out the SU budget by at the latest Friday.
I want to have a board meeting every day this week. Because that's why I signed up for this.
How about 2 every day?
Yeah, we could do that. That's where it feels.
We could do one of those, what was it, the carousel meeting?
Yeah, right.
That is actually not a bad idea.
I mean, that would be the only time.
We would use it.
Carousel meeting would be useful.
That is a useful meeting.
We had, what's that?
I think it would be more useful more often, not just as well. For future reference.
So if we have that, so what is a carousel meeting?
Sure.
We have each individual, we had it all in one building.
We're meeting a month,
So, well, it's
a
one,
marathon.
A marathon meeting?
It's SU, individual.
it's, all the meetings are going on at the same
Same
time
time,
for a while concurrently, all in one building, and then we all come back to the SU.
Right.
Or we do,
Or
we
the
do.
other way.
Or the other way.
It takes some coordination. I mean, under David, we did that. And from my perspective, it was a huge failure, but,
I thought it was too.
yeah.
Excuse me, I just have, sorry, I'm just, I think you
Go ahead.
forgot all these people on the screen.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm feeling like in Heartland is that, the cuts we need to make are pretty drastic to have any effect on our percentage. So what's the reality of really what the SU could cut to actually make an impact on our percentage? Because if it's totally unrealistic, why even go through this process? Unless we're making real percentage changes, then this seems like a ridiculous process to even go through.
So, yeah, I mean, that's a very realistic question in the fact that to make any significant cuts and this harkens back to the beginning of Act 64, when during coal towns and non-ascending towns and so forth and so on. Make any significant cuts, you all but have to close your school. That's kind of the reality right now when you're looking at the major factors on the tax rate is common level of appraisal, and so forth and so on. Can we make significant cuts to make a difference? Not really. At the same time, though, there is the reality that if we make cuts in a way that shows fiscal responsibility in some way, even if it shifts something one way or another slightly, then
Bill, I think that's, we have been fiscally responsible. It's not like we're like, woo, this is going to be crazy budget.
No, I'm not saying we haven't been fiscally
We have
responsible,
not been fiscally responsible, then yes, I'd say look back at the budget. But I haven't felt like we've been frivolous. So
No.
the fact that we're saying we haven't been frivolous, we're just doing this as an action to appease people to, like, we're just trying to do it as a show. And if it's affecting our schools negatively enough, then it's not worth the show in my mind. Like, and if we're just like, oh, we're giving people 3 cents off their taxes, then what's the point?
Yes.
Like, I just need to know the numbers and if it's actually going to impact anything.
We're being asked at our local schools to make cuts that are more likely to affect our individual students than something going on at the central office. So if we can make if we can even just help to like not have to cut one program, if we can save $25,000 from Weathersfield, you know, say 100,000 from the SU, even that to me is worthwhile to do, because $25,000 is our summer program at Weathersfield.
So Larry?
Yeah, just to, Beth asked for some numbers, so just, 30,000 foot view. $100,000 out of the SU budget, out of the general fund, would lower Weathersfield's assessment by $25,900, $30,540 for Heartland, and $43,570 for Mount Scotty. $250,000 cut out of the SU budget would save $64,000 from Heartland and change. From Weathersfield, sorry. Heartland would be $76,000, and Mount Scotty would be $108,000. An example would be like a family plan is like $22,000. Yeah. So just to give that. So I hope if that helps Beth with the numbers.
That does, and my personal opinion is that doesn't seem high enough to me. I mean, because we're talking in Heartland, like, we need to cut $800,000 to really make an impact. So
cutting $800,000,
that 30,000 or whatever, like, it just is, I don't know, like, I just don't want to die from 1,000 cuts through this process.
I'll say one thing and then I'm going to hand it off to Elizabeth. I think if we take on the role of griffing teachers or other staff, I think we're being really, really irresponsible, because we can't find teachers. And so letting teachers go is just probably the last thing we want to do. I think the only way I feel strongly the only way to look at cuts is to look at unfilled positions or extras, because we have some that the principal have asked for in the Scotty School District. Unfilled positions and positions we were looking to add as maybe holding off on these positions until future years where this craziness has settled down a bit. I don't believe that looking at the teacher contract as a cut time, because as limiting, because we can't let staff go. We won't get them back. But if we cut staff we don't have and remove that from the budget, I don't know if all schools have that. Districts. I know we have
unfilled positions.
Unfilled positions. Mm-hmm. And I know we have a slight wave of retirements coming. So that's one thing to look at. But I don't think we should rush through this because we don't want to have to riff teachers. I don't think we can riff teachers. And I understand that really is a local.
I don't think anybody's talking about ripping teachers.
Okay, well then what is the stopgap of making sure that we meet the April 2nd deadline? Why do we need to do that?
It's in HA 15. The 15th deadline is in the bill. So we actually have to, if we're doing new elections, it's in the bill that was signed by the governor, that is, you have to have your budget vote by the 15th of April.
Okay, that's the 15th of April.
Sure.
That's not the 2nd of April.
No, so I think what I've shared with the boards is that, if we don't have a budget by April 15th, I can't issue contracts.
You can't what?
I can't issue contracts to the teachers.
Okay.
If I don't have a budget, I have to riff them all, right? Or pink slip them, whatever you want to call it, until we have a budget.
And then folks are worried about the April vacation week, which is right before that, because
Right.
we won't have a lot of people be out of town.
Yeah, we do not.
Votes that we need.
We do not want to vote
On the ninth,
April
on the
vacation.
ninth. So that pushes it back.
Especially because that's an eclipse.
Right, and
Yeah.
and the recommendation is you want to keep it as consistent as possible, so if you can do it on a Tuesday at the same location where you vote, that's probably wise. So,
I haven't kept up with the law. In the first few iterations that I read, they were talking about, June, being able to.
April 15th,
It's 8 to 15.
I think anybody thought it.
no,
Elizabeth?
Well, actually, Larry's got,
Mine real quick, just because Beth mentioned 800,000 for Heartland. To save $800,000 for Heartland for the SU, you have to cut 2.6 million.
I don't think we're looking to make those kind of cuts from the SU, because the SU,
I'm
There's a
just,
lot of things that
she
are not
mentioned 800,000, so.
Yeah.
Because Beth mentioned 800,000, I wanted to make.
No,
clear
Heartland
that's what the number
CLA, I mean, just so everybody at this table knows, Heartland CLA is so bad
is.
that,
That's separate from your budget. I mean, let's not,
but it's not, I have to pass a budget. And I can't pass a budget with the tax increase that I have.
I know, well.
I'm gonna have to rip like 10 teachers if we can't pass the budget.
But even if you closed the school entirely, even if you ripped everybody and closed the school entirely, the CLA would remain there.
Yeah, we would still have
It
a tax
doesn't-
increase.
Yeah. So one of the things that I know for sure is that the school construction bill is going to get voted out this week prior to crossover on Friday. And I know it's going to pass through because Woodstock got pre-approval for $85 million of their $100 million bond. And they have that in writing. So that means that
If it's passed, then the state has to pay 85 million. Is that what you're saying?
no, what I'm saying is that the Agency of Education would not commit to that without the belief that that bill is going to. It's definitely going out of the House this week, but that bill is going to get through the whole.
that there will be some funding for infrastructure, but not necessarily
Yes, and
85.
the reason that they're doing that is so that schools can cut that out of their revised budgets, because it would be foolish for schools to have school construction in their budgets if they know that that there's relief coming for school infrastructure from the state. So that's one piece. So for our district, that's why it's easy to look at the
roof.
$40,000 for
Right.
$100,000.
Yeah.
So that's one piece. There are additional funding sources that are going to go, like, again, I said this during the Manascutney School District meeting, that when we passed H850 out of the House, there were like 7 or 8 school board members, legislators who are also school board members, who stood up and said, I am only voting in favor of this because of the language of intent of the bill, which is the beginning of the bill, in which the Ways and Means Committee promised that it was the first of many steps. Without H850, I recognize that it's painful to have that cap removed, and that it does raise the tax levels for everybody, but they could not add additional relief efforts without passing H850. You know that already because we talked about it, but the Ways and Means Committee and the House Education and Senate Ed and Senate Finance have all committed to adding additional measures of relief. So it is at the moment a horrible looking CLA. But one of the things to remember is that if you postpone your budget vote, then you give those bodies more time to come up with more measures of relief. That's number one. Number two, there is a very real possibility that our whole system could sink if districts around the state decide not to redo their budgets. And every district chipping in a little bit lowers the overall education spending, and that lowers the cost for everybody, including doesn't affect our property values, but it still lowers the overall education bill or cost.
Which would increase the yield,
Yeah.
which would lower your tax rate.
Which would lower your tax rate. So every little bit that you can do is important and matters.
Okay, Beth?
Yeah, Bill, you were mentioning like at the school levels, just cutting budgets by not filling, not unfilled positions not being, funded anymore. But if we're talking about the SU, I mean, are there even unfilled positions at the SU level too?
There is, may I speak?
Yes, go ahead.
We have been advertising for an assistant special ed director for months, and we haven't, so that is the position that is unfilled, and that is something we've talked about. There are some unfilled case special ed teacher positions, but if we had to choose between a special ed assistant director and special ed teachers, the choice would be the assistant special ed director, because those positions are tied to IEPs.
Yeah.
And those are services that are not being provided currently. I mean, we're trying.
Provided, but we're
figuring it out.
Doing
So
creative stuff.
So that is the position that is unfilled at this time. I know.
Yeah.
Not that Katie doesn't need support. I will just say that very clearly. She definitely does, but
Also look at the reality is that we can't find an assistant special ed director. And actually no one is out there.
nobody wants that job.
Nobody wants the job.
I guess my question is, if that's really the only thing on the chopping block, how would that affect the budget? Is it really worth the
It's about 100
gymnastics between now and a week from now, basically, to be able to, is it worth it?
You can round up, basically look at in rounding, and this seems a little high, but the reality is not. If you're able to go unfilling a teacher position, that's about $100,000.
with benefits,
With
taxes, all that.
with benefits and taxes and so forth. That seems absolutely ridiculous, but it's a reality. For an admin position, and Christina's right, that's about $125,000 that you save just for a single individual. And really the only place that, when we're talking about cuts, we're talking about people. And sometimes you're talking about.
Question.
But yeah, Colleen, I'm gonna come right back to you. Go ahead, Colleen.
Elizabeth, it was a question that came up while you were talking. The CLA rates went down across the state by like an average of 20%. Does that number represent a revenue for the state?
We asked this question, and the answer is, if the CLA winds up overcharging our taxpayers, then that money gets returned to taxpayers. And eventually it gets returned to taxpayers, and the tax rate goes down as a result. The question is, if the CLA, if you understand what the CLA is, it's supposed to be leveling off at a mean of $1. And there's only 5 districts that are above that dollar.
Right.
And the rest are way below. So is that $1 actually really valid? So that's
my question after I looked at those numbers is that number valid?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm sure that they are people who are much more mathy than I am,
right,
are taking a look at it, but hopefully one of the things they'll do is consider whether this is the best funding formula at all. So I don't think they're gonna revise it this year, but to be stuck with this, as you know, the CLA rating is a 3-year average, so we're stuck with it for 3 years. And so I cannot imagine that they would force us to keep this rate for 3 years.
Yeah.
Especially when the.
My analogy of this CLA is that if you can look at it as if there's a monkey in a room deciding what your common level of appraisal is. But the reality is there's no monkey. There's no one in the room. Yeah, there's no one in the room. No one's doing appraisals. We can't hire people to do appraisals, so it's just an empty room. Yeah. Larry.
Yeah, so just to explain we're talking about special ed to hires. That's $753,000. This includes benefits, social security, everything. And health insurance. $753,421. This is a sped director all in. What was budgeted for, of course, don't have a person, but what we budgeted for all in was $129,339, including health insurance, et cetera. And for Weathersfield, that would be $33,498. For Harlan, that'd be $39,500 change. And for Mouse Bay, that'd be $56,353.
So basically the effect of it isn't just, are we going to be able to lower our price? Basically, the important part is that, from my perspective, is that one, we lower how much money we are taking from the state level bucket, and hopefully everyone else will take less money from the state bucket, lowering the tax rates possibly significantly, as well as us, signaling to the taxpayers that we went in, we revoked it, we took out of the budget what we feel we could without seriously impacting students. Now that this, situation is here.
Also,
Davis, I'm sorry for
Lindsay has had.
Yeah, Lindsay's
forever. You can't see her. She's behind Christine's
She's right
head.
there in the corner.
And Lindsay is.
Principal.
Hi, Lindsay.
Hi.
We emailed.
Elizabeth, I had a follow-up question, and if you want me to follow up so we don't spend too much time at this SU meeting, but you mentioned construction being a part of this. Do you have a sense on whether a playground, and I ask selfishly for Heartland's sake, does a playground, would that be considered under the construction realm, or is it more just the physical building itself?
Actually, your chair, Nikki Buck, asked me that yesterday, and I sent out a query about it. I have not received a response yet because we don't officially work on Mondays, so I will, as soon as I get a response, I will let you know. My reading of that bill right now is that safety is the highest priority and expansion is the lowest priority. And
So if our playground has
It's unsafe.
tape on it.
It's unsafe.
I think your playground should fall in there, but that's why I don't serve on house education actually. And so I need to find out from the people whose bill it actually is, what their interpretation of it is.
I know it seems silly to be advocating for a playground in this environment, but it really is.
It's unsafe.
It's unsafe, and I think kids deserve to.
Of course.
So.
Especially at an elementary school. Yeah, of course.
So there's an important logistical question that came up immediately. I feel like it's kind of been hanging in the air, but I think we need to clear it out.
Yes.
So does the lack of an accurate, up-to-date SU assessment number preclude individual districts in the SU from adopting new budgets and awarding them?
I don't think it precludes.
I think it makes it.
You can do it. You're just not gonna. It's not gonna be your assessment's not gonna be accurate.
Okay.
If it changes.
Correct.
Oh.
So if Madison County passes a budget tomorrow, which they have a meeting to hopefully do that, and the SU budget has not been rescinded yet or altered, it's gonna remain as is. The assessment's gonna remain in your budget as it currently is.
The
And
number
then,
in that warranty
Yep.
budget is gonna be
Yep.
the assessment from October.
yep, and then what would happen if the SU assessment is reduced, your, whatever you owe the SU would be less. If the,
Time taxes came.
yes, by the time taxes
Yes.
come around. Yes, so you benefit, but not on your warning and,
And I just think to really piggyback on what Davis is asking, just some clarity from the board. If you would like something more than the positions that have been talked about tonight, the TBHs, I would like more time.
Yeah.
Than this week to bring back a revised budget. If it's about a TBH, I think it's a matter of math, and I can give you new assessments tomorrow morning. But if you guys aren't ready to make a vote on that tonight, which I understand, that's up to you. I just think it's,
yeah.
I want to please the Friday thing that Anne Marie mentioned, so I don't.
But the other thing is,
I can do
Larry,
it tonight or I can do it.
we've talked about reducing an assistant director of special ed. We haven't thoroughly talked about the other TBH positions.
That's why I would like
Yeah.
more time.
Yeah.
Or any other concept.
And Katie's like having a panic attack right now. It's just.
Well, and that logistical detail, I think, informs the urgency of what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
Because if it was a scenario where, like, if we met tomorrow, the Madison County School Board, which we're scheduled to, and we approved a new budget, but then we had to go back and reapprove it in order to have it be warned and actually do the vote later, and that would kick the date out, that would be a very different consideration from, we can warn it with assessment data from October, knowing that it's probably not going to be 100% accurate, but we can still warn it, we can still do the vote within the time frame, and we can explain to our voters, this number that you see in reality is going, probably by the time we talk with them, it may already be lower. I think that's important because that informs whether we're trying to rush this into a week or whether we have a little bit longer and the individual districts can continue moving forward. I think, to me, we already don't have the best data environment, and I hate to be advocating for us to like make that even blurrier.
It's a flip side of the surplus and a non. When
Right.
we come back to you in the end of the fiscal year, sometimes we take, based on your assessment, money from you, which hasn't happened in a while. Or we have surplus and the money goes back to the local districts. It's the same, those assessments move.
At the same time, though, I'm thinking about the political piece, especially in our wonderful neighboring town of Weathersfield. If the Weathersfield board is able to go and show, well, DSU has cut X, Y, and Z, it's going to make life much easier for Weathersfield.
Sure.
So I am going to propose, not necessarily with a vote or anything, but I'm going to propose sort of to split the difference. I'd like to schedule a meeting, an emergency meeting, sometime this week.
Okay.
And to discuss where Heartland is, to see if they've actually opened it up and so forth and so on. And then to look at some proposals from the SU administrations, not necessarily solid, with no way cutting positions. Okay, absolutely no way cutting positions.
And only the TBHs.
Only the TBHs. And so if you guys could talk and think about what can be done, what would be responsible, what's possible, and then hear from them. I'm kind of hoping for Thursday.
Okay.
Friday's better for me.
Friday's better.
Friday, the girls play in the playoffs.
I already got things to marry on.
Okay, well, Friday early.
Friday? Or well, what's
It's an emergency. You're gonna have to do 24 hours into your warning.
24 hours, yeah. It's an emergency.
Okay.
I don't know.
We could warn tonight and do it Wednesday if that's better.
We could do that.
I want to hear about from other board members.
I agree with what you just said. I think just showing some solidarity with the voters of our towns at the SU level will hopefully buy some goodwill amongst the voters. So, And if we can make, if later we can look at the SU budget a little more closely and do something else later as well, then that's fine, but I just would like to get something that actually shows up on their tax bills. Whereas like, if you pass that Mount Scotty thing tomorrow, I don't think that the SU then lowering it will actually affect your tax rate then.
No, it won't.
No,
It won't.
Cause that's,
I mean, you guys can decide what the budget is tomorrow and then call like a 5-minute meeting at a lunch hour to pass it.
should pass it, yeah.
You could do that.
You could discuss it.
Let's talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
No, it's good enough.
And if you think that amount of $25,000 or $50,000, I guess in the case of Mount Scotty would make a difference to your voters. Like if you don't think that, the 2 cents on the tax rate is gonna make a difference, then that's up to
The
you.
reality, if we cut anything significant, then we're gonna be breaking, special ed law. 'Cause we won't be able to
Yeah,
cover
that's what I'm
anything.
saying. Yeah, we can't do huge cuts to the SU budget.
No, we can't.
We could never
Yeah.
make $2 million worth of cuts if they
Right.
would not be
And-
offering the services that we need to
Yeah,
offer.
I know as a parent and a board member, and an educational professional, I think it would be ridiculous for us to cut special ed teachers. We will never get them back,
Yeah, no,
ever,
and we need them.
and we need them. So,
Just a point of clarity, so the cuts that, the proposal you would want for maybe Wednesday would be, you want one proposal or do you want A, B, C? You want, meaning, this would just be the administrative, assistant special ed director. This would be additional TBHs, which would be option B, or would you like just one proposal?
I think an A and a B would be
Okay.
responsible. I think if we can't whittle it down that far, I think,
Okay.
I don't think we need to see. So I'm sorry, we usually don't include, but you've been raising your hand so patiently, and I do appreciate that.
Thank you. I just want to speak on behalf of communities, and a lot of the community members don't understand what happens at the SU level, what goes into the work that they do. But I think it would be irresponsible to not consider that if Weathersfield School is looking at $800,000 in cuts, Heartland is looking at $800,000 in cuts, those are people. They may look like a position, they may be unfilled. There may be paras that are doing the work of special ed currently that are regular ed paras. I don't understand why there wouldn't be real cuts at the SU level. It's all people. We can't make $800,000 cuts without touching people. There's not $800,000 in Weathersfield's budget. You can cut a porta potty, you can cut the gym floor. It's not gonna put a dent in it.
But-
And I understand this can just be a statement. No one has to respond. It is so hard to think that we would only get a $25,000 reduction in the assessment. To me, that is fiscally irresponsible. The services are all being provided. We've got data collection, we've got curriculum, we've got everything happening. And I think that the SU board can make some sacrifices to assist. If you don't want teachers to go and you don't want paras to go, then that's going to take more than one administrative position at the SU level.
So I think it's important to point out that if we go beyond cutting those positions, okay, those are the special ed teachers. Those are the paraprofessionals that will not be going to your school. They won't be going to Heartland. They won't be going to the Scotty district.
They aren't now though, Bill. If they're to be hired,
Oh, I know that, but I'm talking about, going beyond that possibility.
but we're all feeling the pinch.
Yeah,
Everyone has
We
to
are,
tighten.
but the reality is Weathersfield's not gonna be able to cut $800,000 budget. That's not a realistic sort of expectation because you will not have teachers in the building. You can't do that. That's not possible. Heartland can't cut $800,000 because they won't have teachers in the building.
So why wouldn't the SU look at areas to help the districts out?
So we are, but the SU budget is based upon
Teachers in the
people
building.
in the buildings.
And the
So-
SU is more stuff that we really can't do much with at all. It's all wages and special ed and, I mean,
It's-
computer tech, which is lean, so.
So, yeah, we could make huge cuts and you wouldn't have staff in your kitchens. You wouldn't have the required special ed teachers and you wouldn't have the required special ed parents.
So $25,000 would be a big deal to an individual school district.
Mhm.
Then trimming $25,000 out of food service or maintenance, or I don't even know there's a bajillion line items in the SU budget, 1,000 here, 2,000 there. It should all be on the table.
But it can't be because
Not in a
they need
week.
it.
Yeah.
I mean,
We have a week.
then we don't buy food. Then we don't heat a building. Then, so this is.
Oh, we don't have
this is
buses.
the-
We did
Transportation.
talk about pulling buses
It's
and
not
just
required.
making everybody
Yeah.
drive their kids.
Yep.
So, yeah.
I thought about that over the weekend. Like, that's the only thing in there. That's the reality of our budgets, is that we already go through that process. We take everything extra out that we can
Yeah.
to keep our taxes down for our community, because that's our job. So we've
And-
done that.
And the reality, when you look at the busing, one of the largest expenditures in transportation is required transportation for special ed.
Some of it is. Some of it we could not pull.
And that's one of the issues that, looking at an SU budget, many of those positions are required by law. They're required by law.
So what happens if they're not filled now? We're out of compliance with the law.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what's the difference?
Katie's, you should answer
Well,
that.
because,
So we have staff that are being paid extra stipends to do some of this work over and beyond their contracted hours. So that's significant amount of things done. We've also had contracted services. So it comes out of a different line item that doesn't come out of wages and benefits, it comes out of contracted services. So things are being done, it's just not as a direct hire. Also, when I built my budget by the first week of October, we had some to-be hires. Some of those people have already been hired because we had additional students enter. So some of our TBHs, especially in support staff, are already on the books, what I mentioned earlier. So we had an incredible increase in students moving in who required some intensive programming, and balancing out the 3 teaching positions that are up there are critical. We don't fill those out, I'm gonna be blunt, we'll lose other teachers because they're doing much more than they're supposed to. And we all are. I'm functioning as 2 individuals sitting here in my role, because I haven't had an assistant director for 2 years. So I think there's those pieces of staying, and I would like to point out too, staying in compliance, we're back on our track. We are meeting kids' needs, we're evaluating on time, we're doing everything to stay compliance. And those of you who are on the board know how long that took to get us back there, which is huge, which does reduce stress, thank you. But it's huge that we keep doing it, because if we don't, then we're magnifying the problem. And we lose teachers, and it is hugely competitive out there for staff. There's have-tos.
so I appreciate and I respect you bringing that up, and which is why I called them. I'm not required to, but still, we have someone from the community here sitting through, so thank you for coming. There are no easy answers in this situation, so thank you.
You have a community member hand up. I don't know if you want to address Christian Craig. He's from, he's on the Weathersfield Budget Advisory Committee.
Christian?
Thanks. Just a quick comment. I think one thing that's important for SU board members to understand is there's no direct accountability to voters for the SU budget. Schools will go ahead and propose their cuts, and they'll put their budgets out to voters, and they'll have direct feedback. You, the SU board members, will decide the SU budget. And the impact for Weathersfield or Heartland or Windsor, if their individual budgets are voted down, they have to go back and make more cuts. And that doesn't happen at the SU level. So I would just advise SU board members to understand that this is the opportunity to lessen that impact or likelihood that individual budgets get voted down. Thank you.
Most of us sit on the regular boards, on the local
All of us
boards.
do. Right.
Understood.
I'd like to point out that, thank you, Christian, for that input. And in many ways, you're correct, except for the fact that this board is filled with board members that are elected to their local boards.
Understood. But you're not going to get direct feedback from voters.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, and that's really an interesting sort of standpoint in which we've dealt with Weathersfield going to the meeting with the town
Manager.
and realizing that we need to do more outreach to the town manager's office because there's the one that interact with the taxpayers. So you're absolutely right, and thank you for participating. Back to the main question. Emergency meeting, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
I can't possibly do it on Wednesday. I can, because we're at the legislature, we're across over the weekend. I can do it on Friday.
Okay.
If it's just a matter of having option A, option B, or sticking with the budget as it is, so it's basically 3 options, could it be, and if I had all the numbers for you, could it be something we could do during the day on Wednesday or Friday? If it was just gonna be a 5-10 minute.
A remote meeting. That's what
Right,
we
because
did
it's a
for-
matter of just
that's what we
picking an
did today.
option and voting on it.
We did that today for Weathersfield.
Okay, so would it be helpful for board members to get a doodle poll to see when people can meet in the next 3 days?
And if we could do it remote.
And, this is gonna be only remote.
Right, good.
I can do it if it was in the morning,
What time?
anytime before 9.
I'm fine with any of that, and so,
Do you want to take the time to do a doodle poll, or do we just want to go around the table? Would 8 o'clock on
Yeah.
Thursday morning work for you, or Friday morning, or?
Thursday, yes, Friday, very much preferred not.
Okay.
Thursday AM.
So, Friday.
So you can't do Thursday morning?
No, I'm driving kids to
Okay.
school. I could do Thursday morning if it wasn't 8 o'clock.
8:30?
I could do.
8:30?
8:30.
Nikki, 8:30 for you?
On Thursday,
As I said, I can do it almost any morning before 9 o'clock.
Okay.
I can do it.
Okay.
Jan?
Friday would be better for me.
I can do it before. I can do it. Any morning would be good.
Anytime in 20.
Thursday, kind of whenever I can do it, morning, evening, and then Friday, as long as it's before 10:30 in the morning, I can do it, and then evening I'm also free.
I'm open to any.
So what about Beth is online?
Colleen,
Colleen said,
Colleen says Friday's better.
I'll text.
but Colleen, Friday's better. Can you do Thursday though? 8:30.
I'll make whatever work.
Okay.
I may be in the car.
That's okay.
That's fine.
Mark Yunling and Jamie are.
Mark?
Yep, I'm open whenever. Just let me know.
Okay.
What about
And
Jamie?
Where's
Jamie Turner.
Jamie? So, Jamie?
You're muted.
Oh, she's not though.
oh, yes,
Oh, she is muted.
She is.
Jamie, you're muted. We can't hear you. Can you thumbs up? Does Thursday at 8:30 work for you? Yes.
Okay.
So warn it, you want emergency?
Yeah, let's warn it for
Remote only,
the remote only.
8:30
Let's do
Thursday.
Thursday, 8:30.
Okay.
And then if we don't have a quorum, then we'll have to warn it again.
Okay.
And we're looking at A and B.
A and B.
A and B, or A and B, and then I assume you want to see the breakouts. I can create a spreadsheet where to show you the breakouts for each school, and then what would the assessment by, if it's approved, A or B. Then I will make changes to the budget document and write approved.
Yeah, you have to rescind the current one.
Right.
Yes, and I'll have all those numbers.
Yeah, and so I'll push the meeting.
Can I just
And
note?
we will look at, and we'll know what's happening with Hartland. And then we will look at A and B and then decide if we want to rescind or not. And then if we decide to rescind, then we will take A or B, or have to wait until C. That's our choices, okay? Thank you.
I'm just gonna note that we're in the oddness of this year. We're gonna meet on the 29th of February.
Oh, special day.
It's a
Is that
special,
your
this
day?
year is a special year all around.
Are there any
Good
other
thing February
comments
has an extra day.
about
Wow.
This year.
Seriously.
Are there any other comments on the SU budget? Because if not, I'm going to put off policy discussion
Yep,
until
till next month, that's fine. We're all thanking you for that.
Yes, okay.
Three board
I
members,
will take a motion to close this board meeting.
We haven't set an agenda for the next meeting.
Goodness, no.
Well,
Thank you.
we do. We've got our plan. It is,
Okay, good.
let me pull it up for you. For March, well, reorg, right? We're gonna have to reorg. But I don't know if we're gonna be able to do that because Weathersfield is not voting for their elected official, school district officers until later. So we might have to put that off.
Yeah.
Wait, you could do that?
Yeah, you can take, you can,
Why would you, but what I want to ask you other board chairs is, why on earth would you elect new board members in the middle of this crazy process?
Yeah.
Why on earth would you do it?
well, I think from Scottney, it really comes down to, Larry's our school district clerk and he's gonna be running the election. So to make it easier on him, we just did the budget vote.
Yeah.
Everything
and then
else stayed
we
the
have
same.
Tabulator.
Right.
So then I think when we have the budget vote later, you won't need the tabulator to say
Right.
yes or no.
Yeah,
That's
but
why.
if you get new board members, I mean, this is such, it's a,
It
we have
is.
literally,
Yes.
we have literally days to get this worked out. You're gonna have new board members, like, if you don't pass your budget before elections on 5th, you're gonna have a new board member that you have to get up to speed and no time to do it.
Yeah.
We are gonna have, hopefully, I mean.
Hopefully you won't, but yeah. Yeah, so hopefully you'll get it.
Yeah. Yeah,
But I mean, just,
you can
I didn't want that level.
X the whole thing, or you can just,
Oh, yeah.
the article, whatever the budget article is. Okay, so we'll not, maybe not the reorg, you've got the superintendent report, you've got Tracy, special ed report is Katie next month.
Can I request a couple of things just to put on our, sometime in the coming months?
Absolutely.
One of them is the discussion over how we approach policy and procedures. One is, I think we ought to talk about, as a board, the idea of merging supervisory unions, thinking about merging supervisory unions with one of our neighboring supervisory unions, because I know that that's one of the possibilities that they're gonna look at the state. And I think it would behoove us to have it as an issue that we discuss before it's
Thrust upon us.
thrust upon
Yeah.
us.
No, I agree with that.
What would that look like on a prediction? I mean, would it be Woodstock? I mean,
Well, exactly. I mean, I myself have talked with both Woodstock and Hartford. We can have it, if we are talking about it in advance, we can have an idea of what we would like to do rather than having it be pressed upon us and scrambling for the answer is.
I've also started to research about the possibility of a regional high school. The only piece of data I'm missing, and I think I emailed you, is that I have no idea when Springfield was constructed. Hartford and I believe Springfield, and Woodstock. Their buildings are past end date for high school is 50 years. So.
So I think it would be useful, I can tell you what, we don't have to discuss it right now, but I can tell you what I learned from both Woodstock and Hartford when I talked to those board chairs in the last couple of years. So that was another one. There was one more. That I asked. No, that I asked, that you and I talked about bringing up to the SU level.
It's not ringing, not at all.
Okay.
Remember we talked about that, that's specific.
I mean, the reality is Windsor High School is at capacity. Windsor High School was built to house Windsor town students.
Yeah.
K through 12, that's it. So they're at capacity. And people, in the past, people were talking about, well, we can close ADS. How? We don't have room for those students in the process. So I know that's a reality. And I don't see, you know, these three I-91 issues, Springfield, Windsor Southeast, and Hartford, each spending $100 million on new high school. I don't see that as a realistic solution. So I prefer to start the discussions beforehand. So yes.
I'd love to start the discussion well enough, you know, just at least have a discussion about it. We don't have to do anything, we just have to talk about what, you know.
Besides the fact, you know, one of the important points is the fact that HACTC is at capacity. They can't let in freshmen and juniors, freshmen and sophomores, they don't have room. They're at capacity for that building. So,
Which
sorry,
building is that?
get me on my,
The tech center, text.
Oh, okay.
that you kind of get me on my soapbox there, Elizabeth, so thank you.
Okay, I'll send you a draft of the agenda and you can tell me what you want.
I will take a motion to close this wonderful issue meeting. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Thank you, everybody, and especially those who have joined from the public. I appreciate you all.